So in this video, I want to talk about how stress directly impacts your fertility and what that looks like a little bit more scientifically, because I've been throwing it around here and there, but I want to go in deeper. So if you haven't seen my video that I made yesterday, um, and if you haven't seen the video I made before that, make sure to go and check it out. I want to post, I think the last video I made yesterday, I'm going to post it right now. So the reason why you even want to begin to understand what stress does to the body scientifically or um, hormonally is to help you to understand just how important it is that you get stress in check, that you actually do something about it and don't just let it you know run free in your body or wreak havoc in your life. Okay. And the reason because for that is because stress is not just a mood, it's not just a feeling that you're having or a mood you're in, it's not just having a bad attitude or a bad day. Stress is an actual neurological and physiological response to either external or internal triggers or stimuli. And then what happens is this triggers your body to release stress hormones, okay, which can have a damaging effect on your fertility, especially the longer or the more prolonged this sort of response is happening and the more consistent that it is happening. So normally our bodies can handle a certain amount of stress. Like we're not, you know, um, gonna just break down and have too many problems if we just are dealing with moderate stress, right? So, we experience stress every day. Stress is something that you kind of can't avoid completely, but the problem is that now our bodies are pretty much bombarded by stress. We're bombarded by stress, man, woman, child. When I was growing up, stress was something that adults had. It wasn't necessarily something that at least was believed very much to be affecting teenagers and children like that. Until one day, at least for me, I saw a study or an article where it was like, oh yeah, children are stressed out, and it's like, so okay, the world is just now realizing that teenagers, children, the younger generation are experiencing stress. I will go as far as to say that now I think stress is even more increased, and one of the reasons for that I think is because of technology, of social media, and our people not really having ways to deal with stress, or stress management and dealing with stress not being something that has been promoted and taught for years and years, so that the older generation can sort of teach it to the younger generation, right, and things like that. And so I think technology can cause a lot of stress, because I remember when I was younger, if my DVD player would stop working or something and it would start skipping, I would start to feel a burning sensation in my throat. I would get upset. I feel like maybe y'all can relate to this. If you ever lost the converter to the TV and you could not find it, and it was just I feel like maybe that was a common stress that a lot of us dealt with back in those days when we had TVs and remotes. I don't know, they still got those things, right? I don't watch TV, y'all. But yeah, so that was a common stressor for me. Now I know there's the multiple little Roku remotes and things like that. People have multiples of those in their homes. So I would hope and I would imagine that it kind of has toned down a little bit, and maybe you can connect your phone to your television. But I really took the messaging when everyone was like, "Oh, stop watching TV, turn your TVs off." I took that and I ran with it. And when I moved a long time ago, I I just sort of dropped the TV. Even when my children were younger, and I would try to get them to watch cartoons and things like that, they were never really interested, right? Um, so there were certain little things I would do. I would get um VCR, like cassettes, VCR cassettes, and I would play Karakou, and I would find like Afrocentric like cartoons or like storytelling videos for them to watch. So I don't know, this might be something you want to start curating and collecting now because it's not always that easy to find this stuff. Anyways, I had at the thrift store I had came up on a whole series of like these African story tales and things like that. And so my children they took to that. They watched that stuff because the other stuff it used to annoy me. It still annoys me, and I didn't want to deal with it. And I noticed my children weren't really into television at times. So like I never really felt the need to like constantly try to keep up with television. And I'm kind of happy about that. But anyways, so I could imagine that the younger generation are very stressed out as well. Now, again, like I'm saying, it's like more of like an epidemic, right? I feel like back then we had ways or there were just things in place. Like we didn't really have to think about stress as much other than maybe some technology pieces glitching or not working and, going missing. Now we depend more on phones, or some people depend more on phones and technology. Everything's connected to Wi-Fi. Everything is on, the grid as much as possible. Like, and it's like, just think about it. If you lose or break your phone, that's probably going to be very stressful and, it's going to have an effect on you. The problem is that we are bombarded with so many different layers of stress, right? So you have stress from just like physical items, you have day-to-day stress of like, you going about trying to do things. Maybe you're trying to make a recipe and you're missing an ingredient and you don't want to have to run to the store, but maybe you need to charge your phone before you can like order food or Uber food or whatever. Or like, it could be your job or your career for a lot of women who are, again, businesswomen or entrepreneurs and things like this, working from home even. Your career or your job can be a very like high source of stress. There's actually studies that show that women who are in these positions can be very stressed out, and one of the reasons behind that is all of the like studies and things on fertility. They are very science based. They're very scientific and everything like that. However, careers are not. Careers are more sort of like male thought, male oriented, like how men sort of came up with the career models and work models and what it means to them, and what success and business means based on a male point of view. So when those two things come together and a woman wants to succeed in a certain career, and then she has to sort of compete. She better compete with predominantly male perspectives and male counterparts, right? And so this can have a damaging effect on her fertility because it's just outside of the realm of like what a woman would normally deal with in order to be successful, and it doesn't consider the woman's reproductive system and all the science and things like that are that support fertility and that define what is like a healthy sort of reproductive system. So they don't go together in that sense, and so like women are pretty much just out there just winging it, and and this comes at the cost of her fertility, right? And so that's just one thing, even if you don't like leave home and go to work or have a career, even if you're just working from home, even if you're just doing you could literally just be doing like Uber or something like that, dealing with people coming in your car. I'm just pinpointing just certain things, like even if you don't have like a super corporate American job or corporate America job, right? Even if you're not running the rat race, you still have to deal with these stressors that can come from work, which really stems some of the careers and things that women choose, really has an effect on how she sort of identifies or how she presents herself to the world, right? So if you want to sort of feel, accepted and worthy, sometimes women might choose a certain career that can be, considered prestigious or in high demand. And again, the things she has to do to not only get the career, but to maintain the career can take a toll on her, right? But the problem is that, like, again, a lot of people identify themselves based on their career. Like, you'll hear people say, I am a technician, or I am an entrepreneur, or I am, I'm a CEO, I'm an electrician, I'm, this or I'm that, before really just sort of like, telling you more about themselves, or even maybe even introducing themselves, right? And so this can just create a dynamic where a woman has to choose between her career or motherhood, or like whatever pursuits that she has, right? And this has been going on for a long time. So, obviously it's not going to be a surprise once a woman reaches to be around 40 that she has fertility issues. There's a study, and I'll post the links to these studies in the description, the name of the study. There's also one that shows that 42% of women, and I think these are CEOs, but 42% of women who are like very high levels in their career are childless, and it's not by choice. It is considered to be by non-choice, meaning that, like, if they wanted to keep their career and be successful and have the respect and earn the income that comes with that, they dealt with the pressures of the job, and a lot of times it came with a lot of stress, and it could come with not really being able to settle down and start a family, or not even being able to find a partner. You'll see this with like celebrities. You'll see this with, and again, anybody who's like in a very highly demanding job, and they'll face having to make that decision. And sometimes when you're in like a career, you can get really stuck in work mode. You can get stuck in hustle mode. You can get stuck in, again, boss mode. So, it can be sort of difficult to shut that off when you come home and, be feminine for your partner, or when you're with your partner. And this can present a challenge because men are very, again, competitive for the most part, and they want a woman that they're not necessarily having to compete with all the time. Like they want the opposite, sort of experience and essence of a woman, to sort of feel as though they are, again, they are either the man, or dominant, or like wanted or needed in the relationship. And sometimes when a woman is so used to being the person that everybody is relying on and being the dominant person, that can present a problem. And this doesn't even have to be in corporate America. This could be like in an all woman ran company or organization, or like entrepreneur type of situation, where maybe a woman is still dealing with other women. Maybe she has assistants, maybe she has cleaners and house takers and keepers and cooks and things like that, right? So just being in that sort of high achievement. Okay, so what this all means for the body is that your body basically is feeling as though it needs to be in survival mode, and that you need to be able to protect or to defend yourself. So you basically go into fight or flight mode, right? Meaning that when stress is elevated in the body, okay, is that it starts to release cortisol, okay, and cortisol basically takes over the pathways in the body that progesterone uses, okay. And so when this happens, because cortisol is released, the energy that would normally be flowing to your womb, okay, and your ovaries and your reproductive system, now is going to go towards your heart, it's going to go towards your lungs, and it's going to probably go towards your limbs, like your legs and your arms, your extremities, so that way you can fight, you can punch, you can kick, you can do whatever it is that you need to do in order to protect yourself and to flee or evade or to chase or whatever the case is, right? But you're in a work setting, or you're just at home trying to make dinner, or you're just having an argument with your partner, or you're just, trying to tell, a story to family members and it turns into an argument, or, you're just watching a television show or a YouTube video, or, hearing some stressful news or things like that. So if you notice what I did there, I basically showed how your body's in fight or flight mode no matter what the setting is. Like, your body cannot tell the difference from you needing to, again, defend yourself from real or fake danger or attacks or anything like that. But your body will, again, still release the cortisol, still act as though you're being chased by a lion or a tiger or something like that. And it's really up to you to either minimize your exposure to stress stimuli or triggers, or to start to do something about it. I want to talk about, again, what low progesterone means, or like why this is also important in the body, because like I said, cortisol or stress lowers your progesterone. Okay, so again, progesterone is one of the reproductive hormones. It's like similar to estrogen, is needed in order for the reproductive system to function properly. It's one of the primary hormones for the reproductive system. So estrogen is what regulates the reproductive system. Estrogen causes things to grow. Progesterone helps to regulate. So if your progesterone is low, not only is your estrogen more than likely going to be high and elevated, but progesterone is, if your progesterone is low, it's pretty much going to shut your reproductive system down, or cortisol pretty much shuts your reproductive system down. Okay, which is basically by suppressing progesterone. Okay, so what that looks like is that your hypothalamus is going to release gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, and this is going to stimulate. So your hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland to release gonadotropin releasing hormone, and once this is released, it stimulates the ovaries, and your ovaries are going to produce FSH, okay, which is going to stimulate the follicles, and LH is going to trigger ovulation. Once ovulation occurs, then the sac that the egg was in is now a corpus luteum, okay, but it starts to release progesterone, okay, and once it releases progesterone, the cycle continues depending on whether you are pregnant or not pregnant. The problem here is that if your progesterone is low, it's not going to relay back to your brain that it needs to, once again, stimulate the pituitary gland. Okay, and so this is called a biofeedback system, where again the hormones sort of depend on each other, right? And if there's any sort of like hang up in the cycle or the system, then it, like, other systems or other parts of the system are not going to function, right? So this can affect your ovulation. This can affect the regularity of your menstrual cycle, or the regularity of your ovulation. It can affect the entire cycle altogether, right? So low progesterone is not a good thing, and it's not just something where you can just be like, oh, I'm stressed, oh, yeah, I just had a bad day. No, you have now a chemical imbalance, a neurological, hormonal imbalance, and this is something that needs to be addressed, especially if you are over 35, if you are wanting to conceive, and if you have been struggling with poor equality or dealing with fertility issues, especially if it's been for quite some time. And more than likely, if you are a type A woman or a high achiever and you don't have a very strong self-care or stress reduction plan or system in place, then you more than likely have elevated stress. And as a result, your body may be challenged with low progesterone, right? So again, low progesterone is going to directly impact your fertility because of this, right? Because it can create irregular menstrual cycles. If your cycles are irregular, again, the hormones are not being released to signal to the body that, hey, let's just start over again. And so one of the main problems with this is, again, when cortisol is released and it is sending all of the energy to your heart and your lungs and your limbs, we're talking about oxygen. We're talking about blood, which carries nutrients. We're talking about the circulation, the mixture of the blood and